Welcome back to another episode of 7 Pounds Go to the Movies. This is another Throwback Thursday review, and today I'll be reviewing the movie The Number 23. And just a fair warning, there's going to be spoilers up ahead, so you've been warned. Walter Sparrow becomes obsessed with a novel that he believes was written about himself, as more of the similarities between him and the character seem to arise. So let's begin with my first pro. The concept is an interesting one since it's based on a real thing, the 23 enigma, which is the belief in that the number 23 has to do with something significant or even events in history, or that it appears in everyone's daily life. But one of the few things that are interesting about the film are not even in the film. For example, before the film, Jim Carrey was already obsessed with the number 23 that he changed his production company name JC23, or that this film was released on February 23rd, 2007, or that this was director Joel Schumacher 23rd film that he had made, or that Jim Carrey was paid exactly $23 million for this film. Well, these are some interesting facts that get you interested in the movie before you go see it, but in reality, it's mostly, from my point of view, just marketing. But still, something that gets you interested in the film before watching the film. But if you want to get deep into it, there's a lot of people who are diving into this and coming up with other theories of the film that all equate to number 23. Next pro. The setup is good, where we find Jim Carrey at a weird spot in his life before the book comes in. I thought that was interesting, how they were setting it up for the reveal of the number 23. Also, his acting was decent as Watcher, specifically as he transitioned into becoming more obsessed with the number. Next pro, the way they shot the film when it was dealing with Watcher, or shall we say real life. Here we see that it was trying to show us his point of view while still doing a full dive into his delusion, with the number 23 just popping up everywhere, and it made you actually seek it out in every frame, which shows that he is half in and half out at this stage, but you are also participating by seeking out the number even if you're not aware of it. And now let's move on to my cons. Okay, like I said, the number 23 concept was marketing and it was interesting, and in some places of the film it was good, but there are some parts in the film that it's really far reaching even for this film. Here are two examples from the opening credits. The Oklahoma bombing, April 19th. They take 4 for April and 19 for the day, added up to 23. Next, the attack on the Twin Towers, 9/11/2001. They break this down into the month, the day, and for the year, single digits. So 9 plus 11 plus 2 plus 0 plus 0 plus 1 equals 23. So why didn't they include the year in the Oklahoma bombing example? But in the 9/11 example, they did, and they even broke it down into single digits. Well, because the math wouldn't have worked out. Same goes for when Walter questions his wife about why she picked the color red, number 5, as the color for the wall, and he does the math and gets 32. But then he says, it is 23 but backwards. Like, okay, who is making these rules, which include years sometimes, and sometimes they don't, and sometimes they reverse, so the answer comes out to 23. Same goes for the blonde when she's talking about her favorite color being pink. She changes the pink into numbers, then adds them up and blah blah blah, and then she divides to get 23. Well, in that case, come back next time when we're going to start doing polynomial functions to get the number 23. There was times that I felt like I was back in grade school with people doing math magic. You know, when they tell you to pick a number, then you add this, subtract, divide, and then all of a sudden they end up reaching a certain number and you're supposed to be like, wow, how did you do that? Well, that was this film with exaggerated reaches, and I mean exaggerated. It goes so far that at the end, Watcher and his son began circling every 23rd word in the book to find the hint where to dig. Okay, if Walter wrote the book in a hotel when he was crazy, wouldn't it mean that he would have to edit his writing to include the hint there? But at the same time, the book also needs to make sense as someone is going to read it, just like a story. I was not really sold on the idea. Next con, I would let it go if they just kept the idea of the number and kept it simple, but the film did something that felt really weird. They tried to add another element like faith, with the dog biting Walter, then leading him to the grave. By the dog doing this, it adds another layer that you can't explain unless you label it powers or dark magic. To the number 23, I feel that just letting his mind lead him instead of the dog would have been more interested in the film. For example, instead of the dog leading him to the grave, why not have him read the book at his house, then not feel comfortable, go outside, but he can't find the right place, not at home, not outside, not the park, not a cafe, but then he goes closer to the church and ends up close to the grave, where he sits and reads, falls asleep, then wakes up to see the priest there next to the grave, and that's how the priest tells him the backstory about the grave and that the body was never found. Subconsciously, he would be leading himself there, but he wouldn't know that it was already programmed in him to discover the secrets. Next con, the film being split by the cinematography into real life and the fingerling story that shows a Sin City but in color kind of vibe. I just couldn't process Jim Carrey in two roles, one being serious in real life and more interesting, and the other part as him as a detective, while still kind of making jokes on the side. It just seemed a bit off for me. I did like all the times that the color red popped up, but I would have liked it even more if they would just kept it in the real life or the detective story, but not both. Next, the book itself. We find out that Walter wrote it, but his doctor was the one who read it and became obsessed, then published it for God knows what reason. Question: at what point did his wife find out about the book and that it was written by Walter? Before the bookstore, or after she picked it up, or after a few days? If so, when did she have enough time to read it and find out it was Walter? Even Walter didn't have enough time to read it himself, and he had the only copy. It's not like there was two copies where she could have picked up one while Walter was holding on to the other one. If so, why didn't she think he's going to become insane? Let me just take the book away from him, destroy it, or keep it away from him so he won't remember or bring up the past. Also, it was not just her that knew about his past. I believe Dr. Mortimer, the doctor who sees him at the beginning for the dog bite, she should have had some clue because she knows about his record or has access to his record and would know that he was in a mental hospital. Also, Isaac, the friend of the wife, the professor, I think he also knew about it because his wife told him about it. So why didn't anybody do anything to stop Walter? In a sense, they kind of enabled him to keep digging up his past. So my grade for this movie is going to be a 5 out of 10. Okay, the beginning of the film was decent. It was setting up in the right way, but then when they had the Sin City / noir detective cuts, it seemed like it was just two movies spliced together into one, and the cinematography and the character design with the costumes almost seemed comical. As for the number 23, I would have liked it if they made the film into an hour and 23 minutes, since I understand that you can make a full movie into just 23 minutes and market it in that way just to play off on the number. But there are many holes in the plot, like before he jumped from the hotel room, he wrote the last chapter on the wall, but then when the police came and saw the crime scene, did they just say, leave the writing up, just put wallpaper over it and just call it a day and keep renting the room out? Would I recommend this movie to watch? Well, maybe, but make sure you get drunk to the point where you can't do math or ask any questions or rules and just follow them blindly. So that does it for this review of the number 23. Please join us next time where we're going to review The Magnificent Seven from 1960.
That was the greatest shot I've ever seen.
Worst was aiming at the horse.
Please like, comment, and subscribe. You can find our social media links below, and like always, keep watching movies.